I sure do like a girl who knows how to light my fire. She gets me all hot and bothered. Greetings ladies and gentlemen, I am SocioPsycho and today we look at Runers. This is a roguelite game available on PC, created by LGK Games, and as I said, it is a roguelite game with some heavy implementation of a spell rune mix hybrid. It's complicated, but we'll get into it. Now we'll start off with your basic options. As you can see here in gameplay, they do have a wide variation of different interface options, which is really nice, and you usually don't see this level of detail put into a roguelite, and that's nice to we see. Your audio has your ambient sound and music, and the music is true in its sustainability throughout the entire game. It keeps its atmosphere and helps you progress through the game in a manner of connecting the gameplay with the audio. It does a really nice job. Video is very simple as the game is very graphically basic. You do have plenty of screen resolutions, which is nice. And if you do have a weaker system, they do have low performance mode, which is also nice. The game has been running at 60 frames per second with no issues that I've been able to notice. I have not had any tearing, clipping, or crashing. And your controls are all very easily rebindable. So as far as the options go, it's definitely a success in that fashion. You get your achievements and your statistics, all your gameplay stats of what you've done and killed and hit and been hit. Your beastry, which is a nice implementation. Now there's 140 different creatures in the game, as you can see here, and I've gotten a little over half. They do have different bosses as well. I believe there's 15 or maybe a little bit more than 15 bosses in the game, and they each play very differently. The bosses I've encountered have really different mechanics in the game, and they span in a completely different way than the last one that you end up facing. Now some of the creatures do have similarities, such as these little bugs and these crawlers, and while not 140 creatures are all exactly unique, they do have different characteristics or build upon the difficulty that you face, so it may not always be 100% different of a creature layout, but they are different in strength and capability, which helps make the game a little bit more enticing upon what you face, or difficult in what you face. Then you have your tutorials and challenges. Now there are 30 challenges in the game. The challenges don't offer anything special that I've noticed. Different challenges, you can either, for more rats for more problems, defeat 2 rooms of 10 rats in 20 seconds, kill these 10 rats in 10 seconds. You know, it's not all about rats, but there are different things of all these challenges. You must kill 5 bats with a certain spell with at least 50% accuracy. And that spell is not exactly the easiest to use. So they do have a wide variety of different types of challenges. And the unfortunate part about this is that they don't give a passive buff. I would have really liked to see these challenges offer something more to the character that would have crossed over into the actual gameplay. If completing one of these challenges gave 25, 50, or 100 hit points to your character, or increased your damage by 1%. Even small little things that could have just helped out and made you feel like you're progressing, because while challenges are nice, these don't feel tied in to the game at all, and it's a bit unfortunate in that aspect. Now when we go into the game here, as you can see, you have a choice in between different difficulty levels, which is nice. You have Wimpy, Regular, Intimidating, Nightmare, and Apocalypse. The game will get significantly harder. To unlock the higher difficulties, you have to make it to a certain point in the lower difficulty settings. This page of character selection may look a little bit intimidating, as you can select your class and your passive ability. So your classes are split up by different attributes. Each class has one hero spell, and depending on which one you pick, they have different cooldowns, whether they be cause damage in a Nova for 2 seconds, block all damage as you take hitting you, summon 2 zombies. The different classes really help you in the manner you play. Not so much as how much damage you take or anything else in that regard, but the hero ability does play a role. Now you combine the hero ability with your passive ability, which could definitely be varied. Cooldown of all non-damaging spells reduced by 20%. 80% of damage taken is healed over 20 seconds. Damage taken increased by 200% though. So as you can see, there's a large variation. Now with spells at the bottom, the whole purpose of the game is to create spells from runes. So this is more of a personal selection of what you enjoy playing, rather than something that is going to be completely finite in how you play the game. So you have some real selection and division upon what you're playing and who you decide to actually play upon, which allow for a little bit of a replayability because you're curious about finding a combination of the passive abilities, your class ability, and the spells you decide to use that make you have fun in how you play the game. Now the game is based off of a rune style system. As you go through the different levels and missions and zones, you will collect runes and you'll find runes. The first time through, you do not know how to craft any spells. When you put runes together, you have to use a combiner. There are combiners to be able to combine 2 spells and for 3 spells. So long as you have the runes, even on another playthrough, you are able to create that spell. The difficulty comes into the fact that you have to really grind to get an understanding of what the spells are. And there are so many spells, and many of them carry the same characteristics, just in different shades or colors. I've unlocked 50 spells out of 285. And there is a grindy element to it, because as the levels are randomly generated, you're never really sure what you're going to get or what you're going to face. So you can go through and never get the rune that you want to be able to cast your spell, or you may never get a combiner until it's really later in the game. So there is a sort of disconnect in between what powers you have and how powerful you feel in the game. Now yes, there is a lot of choice and a lot of selection in the actual game itself. There is a large variation of spells, but unfortunately we do not know what those spells will do, as that's supposed to be part of the fun of it. The unfortunate part of that is the fact that you end up having to wade through so many spells that have very similar traits but just look a little bit different. Finding the right spell to really enjoy your playthrough can be a little bit more difficult. Now the nice thing about the rune system is the fact that when you create a spell, you have the availability to upgrade the spell by adding more of the runes that that spell is native with to increase its duration, its range, its power, increase a ability of that spell. Now there is a limit on the runes of how many you can add, but the fact that you can also increase this limit as you level up. I like how we did the combiners with the fact that you need them in the beginning of the game to be able to explore and understand your spells. And then when you get the knowledge of your spells, they are still relevant in allowing you to break them down for experience points. The unfortunate aspect of the game is that while you create these runes to find out what spells are there, you don't have the ability to combine spells yourself. And that kind of makes me a little upset. I was really hoping for a bit more of an in-depth crafting system to the game. The ability to add runes to create a unknown predetermined spell is one thing, and that can add a replayability value. But adding the capability to create your own spells by combining these different spells together would have been a lot better. It would have really added the meat and depth into the combat system, but also the game itself, which unfortunately it does not have. Now in roguelike games, you are familiar with leveling up different abilities and finding passive abilities. This game does that very well, and it tries to make up for its combat related shortcomings by offering a large variation, a very large variation of different passive abilities as you level up. Now you can gain these abilities in different ways. The first way is after every floor you complete, because it's as if you're going down a dungeon. After you complete the first floor or the 5th floor, you'll get a floor completed option to choose in between 1 and 4 randomly selected abilities or runes. The other way is simply leveling up your character. You get X amount of XP and you level up and you have a choice to select a trait. And the third one is there are special rooms in each level that are challenge-based rooms. Once you complete these challenge-based rooms, and if you're successful, you'll get a choice of a trait to select. So it has a large variation of the different character passive abilities you can collect. But you don't collect them in a manner that you think as in, well, I'm going on the map and I found a passive upgrade or I bought a passive upgrade. And because there's really no passives that add a obvious increase in how you play. In some roguelites, you pick up a weapon and it does something crazy, and you pick up an even powerful weapon, or you pick up buffs which you can feel as your character gets stronger and stronger. And the spells are supposed to offshoot that in this game, and perhaps they do. The issue is the fact that you will have to grind a lot to find the spell that may be comfortable to you, but it doesn't fulfill the lack of the game feeling powerful. You're a mage with all these runes and all these spells, but there's a real disconnect in between how powerful you feel and how many enemies there are, as well as the movement system of the game itself. Now, does that mean the game is necessarily bad and unplayable? No, but it does require a certain taste or a certain leniency. As you move around the map, as you fight, you usually end up going in circles, running around with different enemies, or fighting in a along the wall style. And while they take into account for this by either having bugs travel only along the outside of the wall, making it more difficult, the combat feels more like a bullet spam shooter than a in-depth roguelike game. There are certain parts of the game where your passive abilities will make you feel more powerful. You may get a passive ability which will, once you destroy a undead creature or a demon, when that creature dies, a large holy pool which will damage any other creature in it will pop, and so you'll get a chain reaction of a bunch of undead demons which will die. And while that can be helpful against certain scenarios and be nice to see, there are other times where you can increase your speed as you play through, but this increase in speed can sometimes be more harmful than it is good. If you need to aim precisely as you shoot, and you need to be able to move around enemies and obstacles. If there is a flame boss and you're really fast, and they're throwing up flame obstacles all over the place, you may just end up moving too fast and running into dangerous enemy attacks or enemy obstacles. The fact that the speed can sometimes feel very fast and be very hard to control takes away from the game. Now, that's not meaning that the game shouldn't have a speed element to it, as some of the enemies do increase in their speed as you progress through the game, and if you don't have the right speed, then they can easily just hit you continuously, you can't get away. So having a certain amount of speed is important, but if you go too far in it, or if you need to go higher and higher as you play and get lower in the levels and face more dangerous opponents, the speed of the game itself will end up being too fast for you. The combat suffers from a level of unoriginality. Because you're unable to actually create your own spells and really play more of a way that you want, or play in a manner of exploration of the spells and finding something that works and finding something that could be a little bit more enjoyable, it leaves the combat lacking. They do make it up a little bit with these special challenges, but these challenges don't fill all the gaps that the game has. If you're doing an escort quest or a protector portal from imps or some variation, the way that the AI reacts, the way they move, the way the passive units move is really lacking. The AI makes it so it's more easier for the enemy to kill the person that you need to protect than it is to kill the enemy, and that doesn't come down to difficulty as you may think or hope. It comes down to the movement and the pathing system and how your companion reacts to the enemy. Instead of moving away from the enemy, they'll just sit there and allow themselves to be hit. So does the game have any challenge or actual availability in allowing it to actually be able to be playable? And that's really the difficult question, because while the combat has a certain feel to it, where it does come down to dodging, it does come down to luck, it does come down so heavily on hoping that you get the right spell, hoping that you face the right enemies because of how the combat system is. And the fact that you can't combine any of the spells to actually allow you to play what you want. You are at the mercy of the runes that you find and the spells that you know how to create. So even though they have so many different spells that you have the potential to unlock if you put the time into unlocking them, the game doesn't have a sense of progression. Yes, you unlock spells, and you use these spells if you have the correct runes, but the combat becomes very repetitive. It's not a question of, oh, is it too hard or is it too easy? The combat is very limited in what you're able to accomplish for a very long time. Now, maybe after 20 hours of grinding, you may be able to actually have a playthrough that's enjoyable because you found a spell that you enjoyed using during combat. But until a certain amount of time passes by, you'll be doing the same thing in a very repetitive manner without actually feeling like your character is progressing. Yes, like I said, you level up and they have a large variation of that, but it doesn't really make you feel all that more powerful. If I get a 10% damage increase by level 5, but the enemy has increased exponentially, but my spells haven't increased because I haven't gotten the right runes, or I don't have the correct spell because I haven't learned it yet, so I haven't unlocked it yet, then I'm sitting in a situation where I'm at level 5, but because of the passive abilities that I got, and the randomization of the runes that I got, I wasn't actually able to progress with the levels in the difficulty. And that right there is the key of it. It's perfectly fine that a game is randomly generated, and it's perfectly fine that the game is randomly generated in the abilities that you're able to unlock as you level up. But you don't progress as you go through the different levels. And so it leaves the game in a very grindy atmosphere where you do the same thing continuously, fighting the same monsters, going through the same levels, trying to get to the deeper and deeper pits. I have not been able to make it past level 6, and while that may be laughable to some, it happens to be that way because you can get to level 6 and be perfectly fine, and because of what spells you have, or hey, I got to this one room, but I never got the right rune to make that spell to slow my enemies, or I never got that upgrade to increase my speed, and now when I went into this room, every single creature in it is a fast-paced, moving, heavy-hitting creature, and they just surround me and I die. There are different variations of suck, which take away from the enjoyment due to the fact that there is no real sense of progression. Do I feel like the game has wasted my time? And that's the odd thing about it. I don't feel the game has disrespected me, because it's very upfront about what it is and the limitations set upon it. Unfortunately, those limitations are pretty heavy when it relates to the combat. If you enjoy this sort of randomization, this sort of really having to put in the time and effort to find a spell that you enjoy, that the fact that you can die even in the first room on the first level is enjoyable to you, then yes, I mean, I can recommend this game to those people. But if you're looking for something that's a little bit more balanced, a little bit more fair, has more progression, has a sense of accomplishment, and allows you to feel satisfied as you play or as you complete a level, then no, because as I completed these different levels, as I went through level 1 to level 2, I never felt like I was really accomplishing anything. I never felt like I was making it further into the world. Well, yes, I may have actually, went to level 2 or 3. How I leveled up and the spell progression never made me feel like what I did was actually making any difference in how I played. Now, I'm not saying in how the world reacted because it's a roguelite and it's not an RPG. but how I played and how I combated and how I went through the different world and fought these opponents. So it's really unfortunate that the game has such a large variation in the spells that it offers, but then it limits what you can do with those spells. For hardcore roguelite players who enjoy a grindy atmosphere, then yes. For those looking for a little bit more depth and satisfaction from the combat, from the playing, and from the crafting, then no, I can't recommend it for those people. People will enjoy this game, and I can understand that, but it just didn't meet the standards that I was hoping it would. Thank you everybody for listening and watching, and I'll see you next time.